Thank you so much, Maria, for joining us as we celebrate Hispanic Latino Heritage Month. And without further ado, could you please introduce yourself and tell us your connection to Suffolk University?
Of course. So like you said, my name is Maria Junco. I'm the associate director here at the Center for Student Diversity and Inclusion. I recently started in December of last year, so first fall semester. I'm
Kudos.
very excited. Um, and then a little bit about me, some background. So I was born in Bogota, Colombia. I always have my flag representing. And I came to the US when I was like about 5 with my mom. And I've grown up in southeastern Connecticut um, for most of my life, for all of my life, really, until I came up after college to Boston. And then Boston didn't want to let go of me. So I keep coming back.
We're glad. Well, there's no denying identity's impact on one's professional life. How have aspects of your identity impacted your career?
My identity honestly inspired my career choice because growing up in southeastern Connecticut, I was surrounded by mostly white peers and leaders and mentors. So I didn't realize truly until I got to college that growing up, I was, the butt of the joke a lot of the time, and that a lot of the friends I had or the fun like interactions I had with people were really just like microaggressions or just regular aggressions that I truly did believe were jokes at the time because I didn't have that information. Um, but it was through college, through I went to UConn to go Huskies, and they had a Puerto Rican Latin American Culture Center that really helped me to find out who I was and figure out what it meant to be Latine or what it meant to be Colombian. And I loved it because I got to kind of dive deeper into my identity. Um, and it was those same mentors who helped me when my pre-law advisor told me that I was just not cut out for to be a lawyer. It was not going to happen for me. I should just stop trying. And I did unfortunately believe them. But my mentors through that center kind of helped me to realize like, oh, there's great work that happens at universities that I'm already part of. So why not try a career in that? So I did AmeriCorps after I graduated undergrad to kind of test the waters on higher ed and see if I liked it. And, here I am.
Well, I didn't realize how much we had in common. Well, good to know. I also desired to go to law school, but started working with students and just loved working in the college. You know, advising space and student success has just always been important to me for the last 2 decades. And so I think, finding your spot is great, but I also don't think it is anybody's place to tell
Hmm.
you what you can't do because of X, Y, and Z. So I'm glad that you found your place and you're thriving in the space that you have chosen. So kudos on
Yeah,
that.
and that interaction like also helped me to realize like, oh, I want to be one of the good guys on a college campus to help motivate and inspire students, not tear them down in any way. So it was a
Right.
double inspiration.
Oh, great. Well, we're honored to have you.
Yeah.
What does the term Hispanic Latino Heritage Month mean to you?
Like what the term?
Yeah.
Well, like I feel like the term Hispanic Heritage Month has a lot of history behind it, and I know that there's different people who, who do like it, who don't like it. For me, I've always held the labels of Hispanic or Latino, Latina, Latinx, Latine, however it's been
Mhm.
grown to evolve. I've always held it very tightly because I think regardless of how we choose to label ourselves. I think it's still the same community. And I'm always gonna align myself with my people because, we need to support one another. And in any way that we can feel that community, I'm always excited about it. So I think when I first heard about Hispanic Heritage Month and that there was a time dedicated for us to showcase our contributions and our culture, um, it excited me because it was a great time to do that, to be proud and loud about our culture and what makes us so special. So yeah, the term Hispanic Heritage Month really is just a time for me to be that much more proud of like where I come from because I know I've contributed great things here as well.
Absolutely. Sometimes when I think about Heritage Month, I think about like birthdays. Like it's
Hmm.
your birthday every day, but
Yes.
like on your birthday, people get to celebrate you, you get to celebrate a new year. And so it feels sometimes to me like, it's that highlight
Hmm.
that is put on that celebration of heritage.
Exactly.
And I do appreciate that. I am curious, like, you talked about like, acknowledging those contributions, but what joy does the month bring you, and does it hold any significance in how you celebrate?
Yeah, I think the joy that I find through the month is because it's celebrated through community. And then we also get to hear like stories of great innovators or people who are doing great things. For example, recently all over social media and there's documentaries, there is a story about a archaeologist who is working to find the lost tomb of Cleopatra. She is from the Dominican Republic. She's actually a criminal attorney with a minor in archaeology. And the reason why she's been so successful in her search is because she's treated it as like a missing persons case instead of just like a regular and like archaeologist, kind of search. So she came at it from a different perspective, and I think hearing stories like that really empower people of all groups, but especially if it's part of your own affinity group, it inspires you to like really think outside the box that just because you don't see people doing those things doesn't mean it can't be done. And I think hearing and being able to showcase those kinds of stories, um, helps just generations of people, plant seeds and try new things. So I think that's what makes any Heritage Month so joyful is that we get to celebrate people who are really just paving the way for just new opportunities for each of us. Like we don't know that like this is the first Latina archaeologist to like make it this far. And I've seen different articles and stuff that say that Harvard and huge research institutions have wanted to sponsor her research, and she's turned them down because she wants the Dominican Republic to get full credit for
Mm,
that find. So it's things like that that bring me so much joy.
I love that. I would typically ask you, how your cultural identity has empowered you in your line of work, but I think you answered that. So what I would ask you a different question is, what can you describe what has been your biggest success story in terms of your career today?
Honestly, my biggest success story to date is getting this job, is truly getting this job. I um had such a tumultuous time in undergrad and even after trying to figure out what it was that I wanted to do. Because I kind of decided on higher ed so late in my undergrad, I was a little nervous to commit to it. Um, so I did AmeriCorps for a year, and then after that, I still just wasn't financially ready to go to grad school, so I took time off. It was the pandemic. Um, and worked in a lot of different spaces, but I realized that in higher ed, the beauty of it is that we love to grow and we love to learn and we love to evolve and become better people, not only for ourselves but for our students. Um, so I feel like through getting this job, um, I was able to like make my little scared undergrad self really proud of my goal was to end up working in a DEI space, to help students of underrepresented communities never feel that college is not a space for them. Like you belong, you always have, and you always will. Um, so having to the opportunity to be here in CSDI, I think only solidified of like I'm like on the right track. I achieved one of my goals at working a DEI office because regardless of what role I held in higher education, I always had a DEI lens. But being in this office, I can be so much more intentional in the work that I do. Um, so I still, pinch myself every now and then of like, oh my gosh, like I made it. I'm in a DEI office. I'm in the DEI space, just like I wanted to, almost geez, like 7 years ago now. Like it's wild.
Well, look how far you've come.
Yes, exactly.
Uh, yeah, so obviously, there's some challenges that happen in the workplace. But you talked about wanting to be in industry in the workplace where you can be a part of the change, right? What are some changes that you would love to see in the higher ed space, in the workplace to improve the work experience or representation of Hispanic and Latina people?
Yeah, I think it's just I would love to see just more representation. I think if people are um truly value diversity, and what that means is just making sure that um that there's people around the table who represent, our stakeholders, our students, our employees, anybody. Um, because I think that way we can bring great ideas to the table. I think there is just more balance that way. I think if we saw folks of Latina background in different positions and all things, I think we bring a lot to the table. And I think something that I've realized, especially the last few years, is that Latine folks a lot of times serve as a bridge to different communities, because we are chameleon-like, right? A lot of us are very white passing, but we also have so many of us who, are Afro Latinos who are also facing different challenges because of the color of their skin. So being able to have communities and institutions see value in just that in our identity, because we are such diverse people like within our own community, I think is really important, um because we can have those spaces. I feel like we can be advocates for other communities, and we can be bridges, so that especially in times like right now, we can come together instead of being divided by our differences. We can find more similarities, um and I think a lot of us are that, not to sometimes, there's truth um in stereotypes, and one that I do hold clearly is or hold closely is that Latinos are very passionate people, and we hold a lot of love, and because of that I feel like we can um channel a lot of that energy um into great places, like the scientist, the doctor who is discovering Cleopatra's tomb, like all those things. I think if we can harness a lot of that passion and that energy into social justice work, into bridging communities, into kind of coming together, I think we can make great change, especially because unfortunately we are a little divided as a community because of our differences as well. Um, so if we can kind of look to more of our similarities, I think we could make a huge difference, like especially in higher ed. Um, because I've talked to students who lead the Latina Student Alliance, or who wanted to bring a Latina fraternity onto campus. Sometimes it can get hard to mobilize or to gather Latina folks because we are so diverse and because we're so different. So I think accepting our differences and celebrating our similarities can really unify us and then strengthen us in like ways we don't understand.
Awesome. Reflecting on your career, can you tell me who or what was most helpful in your professional success?
Absolutely. Her name is Fanny de Jesus Hannon. She is the Dean of Students at UConn. She was the director of PERLAC, the Puerto Rican Latin American Culture Center, that I was very involved in as an undergrad student. Um, and she's really been my mentor through my whole undergrad process and grad school, and even recently. Over the summer, B and I had the privilege to go to NCORE, um, a conference for diversity and inclusion folks. And I got to meet and see Fani again after, honestly,
Oh.
since graduation. We've only kept in touch online. So it was the first time since 2018 that I've seen her. And it was just great to catch her up on where I've been, that I'm in the DEI space now, and it's really all thanks to her and her planting of so many seeds and seeing possibility in me. And we had a great chat of like where DEI is now and how it's changing and how we've had to adapt to, just a lot of policy changes and scary things that are happening within our field and out. Um, but I think it just proved like community is makes such a difference because you don't have to do it alone. There's so many of us doing the same work. And it just really reminded me of that, of if we hold close to the people doing the work that we also are passionate about, like again, we're just better in numbers and we can do more things that way. Um, and something that she's always told me that has never left my mind when I work with students is meeting students where they're at, because your students are going to change. They're going to change every 4 years, every 2 years, every month, who knows? Um, and you don't get to set the line or the bar. You have to go to them if you want to be an effective leader, especially with college students. And I think I didn't really get the message, but now that we're in post-pandemic times and what feels like each freshman class is so much more different than the last, and comes with their own challenges, I always remind myself of, okay, if I'm not getting through to them, it's because I'm not meeting them where they're at. So how can I change my approach? How can I do something different to make sure that I'm reaching the students that I want to reach? So yeah, she's left such a long impact on me. So I appreciate her so much.
Well, you obviously know the value of mentorship. How would you encourage students or professionals of really of any age, or in terms of career, as well? How would they go about finding an effective mentor?
I think finding an effective mentor, um, I'd start with your passions. Start where you feel the most comfortable, where you feel the most safe. Because those are the people who truly value you for who you are and understand you for who you are. Through undergrad, I realized that, when I wanted to go to law school, like the reason why I wanted to go to law school was because my parents and my grandparents celebrated that idea, right? I wanted to make them proud and things like that. But once I got to college and my mentors saw that I was striving for a goal that truly wasn't making me happy, wasn't making me excited, we had tough conversations. And they asked me, like, do you really want to go to law school? Like, if that's what you want to do, like, don't let anybody convince you that you can't do it. But if a part of you is thinking, no, that's not really what I want to do, you have to be true to yourself. So I think a mentor can guide you and help you because they understand you, but you need to pick someone who's also willing to give you some tough love when you need it. Because it's not always about support, but also like a mirror. If you can show a mirror back and help them through your own experiences or however it may be. I feel like those make the best mentors, and that's because they're leading by example. Um, and I think I've always really appreciated that of, you know, ask advice for people who like you want to be in their shoes one day. If you see them and you don't want to be where they're at, I don't think they're the right mentors. Like it's not, that's not for you. So yeah, those are some advices on picking good mentors.
Oh man, I appreciate that. Can you describe some challenges or any challenge or setbacks that you've experienced throughout your career journey and how you've bounced back or how you've moved forward?
Absolutely. The real world is a tough place, Sometimes in undergrad it's all fun and games and all sunshines and rainbows. And then you get to a work experience and you realize, oh, this is a job. People just, sometimes come here just to go back home. Like it's not somewhere that people want to be. And that can be a tough realization right out of college because you have so much passion and energy out of college because you're finally doing the work. Um, but I think a lot of times you find some jaded people who you don't always mesh well. And that's part of the learning process. But I think always coming back to yourself and realize and just analyzing yourself or like understanding yourself enough to know that you have a mission, you have a goal, and you have a reason for being in that space and not letting leaders or peers kind of take away from that. Um, if you're in a space that isn't helping you in any way, like do something else, look up something else. I think something I've also heard is that, excuse me, is that your your mission, your whole purpose in life doesn't always have to be like your job. You can also find those same things in like your hobbies and your extracurriculars and all these things. So, but if you are struggling like in your job and there's been so many setbacks, like for example, when I did AmeriCorps, um, I did it to try and get an idea on higher ed and what it was like. But I felt like that experience, I was more like a bullet point in someone's resume than um, they were actually trying to do the work that I was there to do. Um, but I stayed true to myself and I stayed true to the work I was doing. And years later, that same institution reached out to me and asked for the work that I did because, they hadn't kept good track of it or however it was, but they came to realization that the work I was doing was beneficial. Um, so I think just because people don't appreciate you right now doesn't mean that they won't appreciate you later, but you have to stay true to like what you are there to do, right? What brought you there in the first place? There was a reason you applied to that job. There was a reason why you saw yourself there, and you should be proud, one, that you made it, and it's okay that your goals or whatever you achieved wasn't what you thought it was. And that's okay. You can always start fresh. You can always start new. But as long as you kind of stay true to who you are and what you were there to do, that hard work is going to show, I think, no matter what.
Like, I am so appreciative of your insights.
Of course.
Well, as we wrap up, I would like to know if you could give your younger self advice, what's one piece of advice you would give your younger self?
Hmm. It's a great question. I think if I could give myself one piece of advice is to just to lead with confidence. Um, because I think a lot of times, especially as a person of color, um, we criticize ourselves a lot and we feel as though we don't belong in spaces that we're in. Um, and I think that is just such an inner saboteur coming out always of just you have to be kind to yourself because no one else is going to be as kind to you in any space. Like you need to be the one to be kind to yourself and realize that if you were invited into a space, if you were accepted into a position, it is because you are deserving of taking up space in that company, in that field, in whatever it is. And not to let anyone or anything make you feel like you can't do something. Um, every one of us deserves to take up space and to be innovative and creative. And just do what makes us happy, especially when it comes to work. If what you do for a living doesn't bring you happiness like you should, I feel like do something else. Like I love the saying of if you love what you do, um, you don't work a day in your life because you're excited to go to work. And as much as there's times that challenge, um, that is really great thing about higher ed is that it's is just a lot of fun. Our students make things exciting and they keep you on your toes. But yeah, I think just being kind to yourself.
Yeah. There's never any danger when you're kind to yourself and can be the person that, you deserve to be. So
Yeah.
kindness to oneself is just as important as well as any other factor. Well, I want to say thank you so much for giving your time, sharing your heritage and your journey from Colombia to Boston. And
Yeah.
I'm glad that Boston is home for you now, and we get the privilege of working together at
And
Suffolk University. So again, Maria, thank you, and I appreciate you.
of course, anytime, Ade. Hope this helps.
Yes, happy Hispanic Latino Heritage Month.